We all have gods, Dr. King said. It's just a question of which ones. And in our America, our gods are celebrities. So writes our next guest. He also fears that our democracy has been put in such peril right now that we've never been in a moment like this before. The threat of totalitarianism is very real, he says, and advertising and corporate culture have a lot to do with it. Chris Hedges is the author of War is the Force That Gives Us Meaning. That was his best-selling classic. He's out now with The Empire of Illusion, The End of Literacy and the Triumph of Spectacle. You can find his columns each week at truthdig.com. We're glad to have you back on the program.
Thanks. That was
Chris.
Martin Luther's quote.
Yeah.
Not King's. We all have gods. King probably would have agreed with
mistake.
it. That's Martin Luther.
Oh, well, it's a great quote. We all have gods. It's just a matter of which ones. Which gods do we have?
Celebrity culture has created a kind of cult of the self where we measure ourselves against fantasy. Traditional values, I think, beginning probably after World War I with the rise of the advertising industry, have been completely upended. This is that process of turning consumption into an inner compulsion. And that has created, I think, completely redirected so much of energy. I mean, away from, if you look at like even my grandparents in a small town in Maine, it was about thrift, it was about community, it was about self-sacrifice. Now it's about consumption, it's about hedonism. It's about the promotion of the self towards illusions of wealth and fame and an elusive happiness. It's a completely different.
Now, what brought you, former war reporter, somebody who's written a lot about the U.S. wars around the world, frankly, to this subject, to coming back home and looking so closely at our domestic culture?
Well, because for instance, I covered the war in the former Yugoslavia, and societies that sink into irrevocable decline and even war fall first into a state of self-delusion. The belief that, which is peddled across the political spectrum, the belief that we can have everything that we want, that reality is never an impediment to our desires, that if we dig deep enough within our character, that if we find our inner strengths, if we believe that we are truly exceptional, if we trust God that miracles can happen, we can achieve what in essence is fantasy. And that creates a kind of perpetual childishness and infantilism, which you saw in the former Yugoslavia with the rise of figures like Slobodan Milosevic. Remember, the war in Yugoslavia was not caused by ancient ethnic hatreds. It was caused by the economic meltdown of Yugoslavia.
You talk about the current moment being related to the meltdown, too. Before we get to that, let me play a clip from the World Wrestling Federation's series that you see on TV. You talk a lot about World Wrestling.
Yeah, well, I begin the book with it.
And it is profoundly disturbing. We're going to see a clip that features Shawn Michaels. You want to set it up for us a little bit?
Yeah, Shawn Michaels, known as the Heartbreak Kid, is a very popular wrestler. He's a born-again Christian. He's a good old boy. And in these backstories that are built around these wrestlers, and that's what's interesting, because I think they reflect the kind of personal disintegration that's gripping especially the working class. These are very emotional, and you can sense it from the crowd scene. I mean, and so Michaels has been in the backstory wiped out by the financial crisis. His 401k has been wiped out. His college funds have been wiped out. He's being foreclosed on his home. And this capitalist figure known as JB, who runs a stable of wrestlers, now essentially owns him. And he's a very dark figure in the sort of story or plot line of wrestling.
All right, let's take a look.
I own the Heartbreak Kid. I own Shawn Michaels, and you work for me for the rest of your life. I accept. Then let's be clear, because you still work for me. No matter what happens at No Way Out, you work for me. And Shawn, you put your hands on me, steel's off the table forever.
Chris, I mean, some people might say, will you even say that the fascination with these sorts of stories and these shows like World Wide Wrestling reflect a real longing, a real hunger in people? What's so terrible about playing it out like this?
Well, they reflect, I think, a moral disintegration. If you go back and look at the old narratives of professional wrestling, which were filled with chauvinism, an undercurrent of racism, xenophobia. It was always the good old American boy battling the Iron Sheik or the Russian bear who would come out wrapped in a Soviet flag. That's all disintegrated. That's gone. Now, rivalries are about infidelities, about betrayals, about sibling hatreds. There's one story line that's run out, and it is a guy who purportedly, I think he actually did serve briefly as a prison guard in Georgia, and he fights a wrestler who was one of his prisoners, who enters the ring in an orange jumpsuit and suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. There is no morality anymore. Everybody cheats. As soon as the referees, which happens often, turns their back, the tag team partner will jump in and start pounding or use a club, and the storylines themselves, I think, reflect the kind of moral nihilism and breakdown of community and breakdown of sense of self and breakdown of morality that now infects American culture and is a direct product of consumer culture where everything, including human beings, are turned into commodities.
Every human being, though, according to this same narrative that you're critiquing, has the possibility of making it big.
Yeah.
And rarely have we seen this played out bigger than in the fascination for a moment with Susan Boyle, who won the British Britain's Got Talent series. Take a quick look at this memorable moment that passed so fast.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by.
You didn't expect that, did you? Did you? No.
All right, so in addition to the dark vision, there's also the pink lensed vision that you could make it big. It wasn't so great for Susan.
Well, again, this feeds into the cult of the self, that sense of I will be risen above, I will rise above the crowd, there will be widespread adulation for me, I will be famous, I will make money. That reality television plays on this constantly. If you look at the kind of characteristics that are promoted, especially on reality television, they're really the characteristics of the mentally ill. It's about self-aggrandizement, it's about manipulation, it's about dishonesty, it's about building faux friendships, fake friendships, and then betraying those friends. And for what? The end goal is fleeting fame and money.